Okay, okay, sure.
बंद केलं ना स्विच ऑफ केलं त्याला ओके
Otherwise, if the session is going on. For a few minutes more, so they will have a pop-up message which will come for us.
The moment
Yeah, Gautam, you want to say something?
That's good.
Good morning, Tarun. Rather good afternoon now.
Good afternoon, Dr. Mini. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So far, so good.
हाँ नहीं अभी तक नहीं आया स्टार्ट वेबिनार अभी नहीं आ रहा नहीं नो नो हाँ हेलो when it's I don't have that option being seen. First it was seen. Now I don't have the option seen of start webinar. But I don't know when that other session is ending. How will I start? आपको बताना पड़ेगा because I can't see that start webinar button now. हाँ. Okay, maybe in some time we'll all be starting. So I think that's what he said. He'll give me a call out. And anytime in 2-3 minutes we'll start. Start? Okay. Okay.
Hi, Tarang. Hi, Tarang.
Very
I
good
can't see Yatish.
Good afternoon, Paul. And we will be starting our first session of the healthcare leadership panel, which is for this day today, the starting day. A very good afternoon to all and welcome to the first session of Healthcare Leadership Panel. I'm Dr. Mini Bodhanwala, the moderator for this session. I'm also the CEO of the Warrior Group of Hospitals. We have an eminent team of speakers with us. I would like to introduce each speaker. I will just call out the names and they'll give you a brief about themselves. Mr. Harjinder Kang.
Thank you, Minnie. And good morning and good afternoon to everybody, wherever you may be. My name's
Hello, ma'am. You can start.
My name is Harjinder Kang, and I'm dialing in to this conference from the UK. I'm currently the Director for Healthcare, Life Sciences and the Bioeconomy in the UK government in the Department of International Trade. I joined the government about a year ago after about 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry, mostly at a company called AstraZeneca, which you may have heard of. I've essentially also got a background in the National Health Service of the UK, where I'm the Vice Chairman of a National Health Service trust of 3 major hospitals in the middle of the country, serving effectively 500,000 people and 7,000 employees and so on, and has been right at the front coalface of the COVID-19 experience in the last 6 months and so. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to a wonderful webinar in the next hour or so. Thank you.
Dr. Tarang, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Dr. Tarang Ganchandani. I'm the CEO at Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital. As we are all here today, I think all of us involved in healthcare have experienced our bit of COVID. Better not to talk about post-COVID so early, but yeah, COVID in every part of the world in our own unique ways. So I look forward to learning more and understanding more from all of us together here. Thank you, Dr. Mini.
Mr. Yatish Wahal, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Mini. This is Yatish Wahal. I am one of the executive directors of the Naiti Group of Hospitals. We have a strong presence in the state of UP and Delhi NCR, where we are running almost 800 between the hospitals. And again, it's a pleasure to be part of the panel and to have insights from across the country and also the UK and how the NHS is. It'll be interesting to note how the NHS is trying to cope with the situation as perhaps we are going through our second peak and also sharing our insights. Unfortunate that, or rather ironical that we've had to have COVID to sort of suddenly realize the gaps that have been there in the healthcare sector in India, but we're all trying to cope and match up to it. Thank you again.
Mr. Gautam Khanna, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Bodhanwala, and to my esteemed panelists. So I am Gautam Khanna. I am the CEO of Hinduja Hospital in Bombay, and I've had around 30 years of experience in healthcare, out of which 7 years is the last assignment here at Hinduja Hospital. Before that, I worked elsewhere for a long time. And looking forward to the discussion today and from the panelists and the feedback from the audience.
Thank you very much. I think we will start our first round of questions. The first question I would ask to Mr. Harjinder Kang. How can healthcare leaders effectively work at the crossways of both private and public healthcare sectors and navigate through the ongoing crisis? Can you tell us something about that, sir?
It's actually a wonderful question. I think the pandemic has made, companies, academic centers, governments, individuals collaborate like I've never seen before in my working life. I think sometimes necessity makes people behave and work in a manner they're not used to. And certainly the thing that I've taken away from this is that thinking can happen anywhere. It can happen in a institution on its own. It can happen across a country. But the ability to share that and to be able to build upon that across different ecosystems has been spectacular. And the sort of examples that you've all seen probably over the years, over this last 6 months, is the sort of how private sector organizations and public sector organizations have helped themselves, whether it's through treating patients when, say, certainly some of our institutions were at the peak of the crisis, having capacity issues, then the private sector would be able to stand in and do some of the elective surgeries and so on, as opposed to the acute NHS hospitals. There's this sort of, diagnostic side of things where, certain private sector institutions took over the diagnostics work, certainly oncology and things of that order, where it was difficult for patients to go into the normal NHS hospitals because they were frightened, quite frankly, first of all. And second of all, the mainstream operational activities were really focused on treating COVID-19 patients. The other piece that I think, you know, the way the collaboration between healthcare and academic institutions and the industry, certainly the pharmaceutical industry, how they've collaborated in order for various clinical trials to be extremely quickly set up and run. And when we look at the development of vaccines in the UK and probably in other countries as well, the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector has been spectacular. And I've never seen such a rate of development and a pace of development in those sort of therapy options. Certainly the therapeutics trial, which effectively came up with dexamethasone as an option for people who were sort of acutely ill in hospitals. That was all as a result of you know, great collaboration between the NHS Trust hospitals, the Department of Health, and a therapeutics task force set up by the government. And it just shows that, you know, as and when you need to, you can do great things when people start to collaborate together in a manner which they've not done before. And, you know, research pathways which go from a laboratory straight into a hospital environment without too much bureaucracy and hindrance allows for those studies to happen in a very, very quick way. And I think certainly I would say the learning of these things, we should not let go. I think it's very easy to go back to what was business as usual, for want of a better word, where, you know, you automatically go back to a bureaucratic way of doing things which slowed things down. And my sort of, you know, express desire is we package some of this up, we bottle it up, and we pursue similar ways of operating going forward. Because, well, first of all, this pandemic hasn't gone away, and there's still going to be a need for a lot of good collaborative work going forward. It's not done yet, as we're all sort of seeing. There is a slight second peak arising everywhere around the globe. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that it's actually been a transnational collaboration. It isn't just you know, different countries sticking to their own agendas. There's been a lot of good discussions across, certainly with the UK and, for example, India. There's been a lot of good collaborations together. I mean, that would be my sort of summary of it all. But certainly in the acute hospital environment, there has to be an element of making sure the private sector are not in any way put on the fringe or set to, you know, fend for themselves. It has been very much a joint effort in that respect. So certainly I see a lot more of that coming along going forward. That's really what I was going to say as sort of an opening comment, and happy to discuss a bit further later.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harjinder Khan. You have really enlightened us on that. I would now ask Dr. Tarang the next question. How can healthcare leaders effectively work at the crossways of both private and public healthcare sectors and navigate through the ongoing crisis? I think this would be good for you because you have worked in both the sectors, Tarang. I think it would be really enlightening for us.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Mini. I have worked in both the sectors, both here as well as in Singapore. So it is quite a interesting need of the hour question, and I think it is something which entire at all across globe we are looking at. So I think the most crucial things which I personally feel are important for a successful public-private partnership, especially during crisis, is that there has to be very effective communication between both the sides. There needs to be an effective coordination. So as I call it a 3C approach, that we usually, it's a successful approach when you look at both the sectors, look at each other, in terms of effective communication, coordination, and collaboration. And these three words are very, very key because, and very, very important in their own intent, because till the time there is a complete buying in from both the sides, uh, partnerships may start, but they may not be able to navigate through, especially during a time of crisis. So I think let me first say of what we have seen successfully happening in India, in Mumbai, as regards public-private partnership in COVID. So I still remember the early days in March when I think we were all got on the same platform by the BMC, by the commissioner at that time, and we were all given a hearing. A very good approach was adopted since the beginning, which continues now, or rather, I would say it is much more strengthened now, and where like if at any point of time all of us in private sectors were getting stuck with something, there was a channel of communication for everything, whether it is for testing, whether it is for swabbing, whether it is for treatment. All communication channels were created and kept open for a two-way transfer. And I know at the level of how I have communicated, gone out of the way to communicate with Dr. Shastri, who was leading it on the medical side. My team has gone out of the way and communicated with her and other medical leaders who are involved. And likewise, on the non-clinical side, we had all of the people in the BMC, right from the commissioner, then Mr. Suresh Kakani, and many other senior BMC leaders who just came forward, and they were just open for communication. We were looking at really working together. And I think that really, to whatever best extent possible, considering the situation of the healthcare system, helped us to gear up the response towards COVID. At least the strategy was laid down very clearly as to how the patients will get admitted. And now it is really strengthened very well by the BMC as well as by the private leaders in the various hospitals who work together with each other and try and coordinate the best for the people of Mumbai. Another important thing is the financial bit, whereby I think the policies did come initially as a, and I know that we are still amidst the crisis for the charging differences. But if we step back and look at from the government's point of view and the way the people of the country with regards to their healthcare insurance are, I think it was a good, to some extent, it was an approach which they had to take on the charging, but it was also taken, and I think at all points they are open on communication. Mr. Gautam speaks to them very often. I know at times we feel that we are not heard, but I think at the public sector level there are other challenges, and this is a very unique situation. So everybody, there's nothing right and wrong. It's just whatever works best at that point of time. Just a line about how it is, from my experience of being done in Singapore, is that uh, in Singapore also it's a example of a very strong public-private partnership as far as the healthcare system is concerned. So we have there is a system of, there's no public hospital. These are all restructured hospital, most of them. They take care of the public healthcare as well for the people who are who would afford the healthcare based on their economic status, as well as they take care of the private group. And then there were private players. But the country is a small country, much smaller than, even I think it's 1/4 the size of Mumbai. So it has invested a lot in, compared to the size of the country, in the healthcare system. What works is a very effective approach of partnership between the two sectors, whether it is COVID or non-COVID. In COVID also, it has worked beautifully, whereby everybody has been assigned. There are hospitals which are just assigned to take care of COVID from all sectors of societies, and then there are hospitals assigned to just take care of non-COVID in each of the zone. Obviously, these approaches are some things which we all learn from, and something to see what best can be brought to us. But considering the size of our country, the vast cultural differences, I think Mumbai has definitely faced it the worst, but I would still say has managed it also to the best of its capabilities. Considering that we are the state which is doing, the city which is doing maximum testing, and still, and our recovery rates as of yesterday are 81% as a city. So I think it is all possible because of this three-pronged approach of communicating, coordinating with each other, and working in collaboration. That's it from my end. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Taran. Now we move on to Mr. Yatish Wahal. The question for you is here. What is the potential transformation impact of the COVID-19 pandemic towards future crisis management? Could you enlighten us on that?
Well, Mini, this is, I would say, post in our generation and the times that we witnessed, this is one of the worst pandemic that any one of us has seen across the globe. And what that has also sort of got us together to do is to sort of try and live up to it and scale up. See, the initial steps and lockdown that the central government had imposed, that really allowed us the space and time to plan and augment whatever capacity we could. When we started out, there was a lot of undersupply and a lot of disbalance in terms of the demand supply of medical infrastructure. Not that that's vaporized or evaporated. The PPE kits or the mask and the entire paraphernalia, all of that was augmented. We had corporate India coming into the aid of the central government. We had initiatives where automobiles, but this infra was created in the span of 3-4 months. We've had makeshift hospitals that have come up. We've had capacity augmentation take place. Obviously, it's very well known that pan India, the number of bed supplies is limited. But given the augmentation that happened and the steps that were taken, we at least became prepared. The Indian pharma majors got license to sort of introduce some of the trial and therapeutic drugs, which fortunately are now available, though they are still scarce, if I may say so, and their reach to the tier 2, tier 3 is still not that much there. It's better, and we are all trying to cope up to the situation. What it's also done is it's brought in a lot of emphasis to technology, because suddenly we've come to a situation where there is a crunch in manpower. You cannot have people in PPs working around the clock. You have to give them breaks. This is perhaps one of the few diseases where the caregivers, including the non-medical people, are at risk. You may have everyone in PPs, but what do you do about attendants who are coming to meet people in the billing or say an OPD, though we've all put up thermal scanners and infra scanners to try and measure the temperature. What do you do about the asymptomatic? So people are falling sick. You're trying to build in a redundancy into the system. You're trying to cope with them. You're trying to have an alternate place, an alternate team in place. So Bombay may be the experience, because healthcare in India is also a state-related subject at the end of the day. What that ends up to do is that every state has its own unique policy. While UP and Bombay, for instance, have gone in for either standalone COVID or non-COVID centers, Delhi, on the other hand, has mandated every hospital with more than 50 beds to earmark a certain capacity of beds for COVID. This was necessary, again, not just to treat the people of Delhi NCR, but the influx today that we are seeing of people coming in from the periphery. Because again, the non-metros, what it's opened up today is that the non-metros are completely ill-equipped to handle such an exigency. However, again, as I said, the very time period that was allotted to all of us where all of us got together, augmented the capacity, forums were formed. Even today, there are close interactions that happen. Things have improved remarkably from when we started out in early March, and there was a complete hue and cry in terms of the today. All healthcare measures we are trying to do bulk sourcing together. We've tried and optimized on costs, but at the same time, yes, what's that's also opened up to is a situation where pressure of capacity. But again, as a provider, we manage and sustain all departments, and that is where Gautam, Tarang, I, and our other people in the fraternity are trying to maintain that balance, wherein there is very little or no complex around the care for people undertaking maintained. IT definitely is a big changer now, where more and more use of AI to try and simulate the reports, try and automate the charting, try and automate the simulations in terms of how the parameters of a patient are varying in the ICU are becoming important. E-ICU today, whilst earlier was being followed in limited hospitals, I think in all corporate hospitals that's actually being used. So it's a big leap for the country also, I would say, and has got us all very well prepared and better prepared to meet certain exigencies, if at all that were to come in the way. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Yatish. Now we will move on to Mr. Gautam Khanna. There's a good question for you. I think the speakers will be enlightened by you. How can a leader navigate through challenges and lead during and after the pandemic?
Thank you, Dr. Bodhanwala. It's a very interesting question, and I mean we've heard very good perspectives from Mr. Kang, Dr. Tarang, and Mr. Yatish. And so what I will try and do is obviously it has to go beyond the healthcare perspective. So let me break it up into 5 buckets. So the first bucket, and I'm saying all of us have experienced this, but I'm just trying to put it in a perspective, is to understand the problem. I know we all knew that the COVID was there, but to understand the scale of the problem, to understand, what is the position of the other stakeholders in this problem, and where do I get help from the people on this? What is the expertise available? So I think that understanding the problem or any problem is a significant part of the leadership required for challenges. So that is a one important part. Like Albert Einstein had said that if I spend 60 minutes on a problem, I spend 5 minutes thinking about the problem, 5 minutes about the solution. So I'm saying this is the very important part, understanding the problem, the scale, the expertise, and so on. The second aspect is about quick decision making. So I have to say that we've been as leaders used to taking decisions with 70, 80, 90% of the information available. But now in this crisis, when the information was changing every day, there were advisories from the government sometimes twice a day, you have to take decision quickly. And then sometimes with 40, 50% of the information. And then on the go, you have to revise. So maybe you meet every day. For example, we were meeting every day, our task forces are meeting and quickly taking decisions. So I think that quick
Screen is frozen, Dr. Mini. You are on mute, Dr. Mini.
Yeah, now?
Yeah, it's fine now. Maybe I think he'll join us again. Why don't you take up another question? So then we can just.
Okay. So now we move on to round 2 of the session. And the round 2 goes back to Dr. Harjinder Kang. Mr. Harjinder Kang, how can healthcare leaders collaborate to make this pandemic breakdown into an opportunity?
Thank you, Minnie. Yes, it's actually changed the way we do healthcare in the UK. I mean, certainly, if you look at the use of technology, it's absolutely gone stratospheric as to how we now adopt basically what used to be normal face-to-face interactions are now done digitally. In the primary care arena, it was almost unheard of that a doctor would see a patient virtually through video conferencing or any other sort of digital means. But right now, the vast majority of consultations at the primary care level between general practitioners and their patients, the vast majority are done virtually. My daughter is actually a GP in the National Health Service, and she gives me the sort of day-to-day, you know, how does it work? And it makes for quicker, easier, faster processing of delivery of healthcare. But there may be an element of that you do need to see patients as well in a physical way, depending on the first interaction. So it's not like it's everything is done that way, but the vast majority, certainly the first interaction. And I think that sort of provider and patient technology interface will stay. I don't think it's going to rebound back. And certainly digital front doors will become very, very acceptable in healthcare systems. Whereas in the past, maybe it was seen as something that was you're forced into doing it, or because it's remote access, people are living at big distances, that you necessarily wouldn't go down that road. But right now, it's certainly it's freed up time, it's freed up resources, and though that set of resources can be now used for other higher value activities as opposed to the routine, which can be done in an, I won't say automatic fashion, but in a less resource intensive way. And I think that way allows partnerships to extend. I mentioned it earlier that I've never seen such a set of collaborations across many aspects of healthcare delivery. I think the way that the digitizations happened will mean that will be easier. I mean, you can sense what's going to happen in the future. I mean, certainly robotic surgery, for example, is already here. And the doctor doesn't need to be in the building. It doesn't even need to be in the same country. And you can actually have transfer of skills at great distances using this sort of approach. And finally, it does make the use of resources more efficient. Having that face-to-face interaction for every ailment is actually quite a luxury. And really, do you need that for minor ailment compared to serious conditions such as MI, oncology, and so on? But what I would say is that that expertise can be then spread wider as well. It's not that you're efficiently using it in that one-to-one interaction. You can actually use that expertise in a much more broader way around the world. And some of the experts, certainly, there are global experts already you do this. And I think what's happening at national level, it will become even more prevalent. And I suspect, you know, India will become, as it is one of the technological leaders now, almost of the globe, that it will encourage more of that. And, you know, great expanses of geography can be covered very, very easily now going down this road. And I think the cooperation that I mentioned in terms of drug development, or vaccine development or therapeutic pathway developments and so on, those will be made easier also because we are able to do this. So that's all I would like to say. And I think let's carry on with this collaboration because it's going to be very useful for all of us going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Harjinder. I think I would ask Mr. Gautam to continue, and also I would ask him the second question also to continue, which would be, what are the competencies and skills required for a successful agile leader? Mr. Gautam? Okay, I will carry on
So
with
let
Dr.
me.
Tarang.
So I'll try and combine those in so time. Yes, I'll try and. No, can you hear? I can hear each of you.
Please, Gautam. Yeah.
Doctor, can you hear?
Yeah, we are able to hear. Please continue. I think Tarang and Yatish, you may off your speaker mic.
Oh,
Your audio.
okay. So I'm said can combine both of this. And
Yeah, please combine both, and we have short of time, so
yeah.
I think I can give you 7 minutes,
So
5 minutes, because we have 2 more speakers.
so I was the 5 years, so I go to 2. I think. Yes, I'll finish in 5. So then the one I understand the decision making will. I think what important is fusion and crisis is critical, because you know, of course we want to delegate. Then in this crisis, it is important for leaders to take involved in the direction that nothing goes wrong, because we don't get a second. I think that is the third point I want to quickly say. The fourth point is that we need to continuously reassure the team and communicate with the team that there is going to be a positive outcome, and continue to keep them engaged, because if you don't do that, the whole will collapse. And the last thing is technology and what new things. So I think if 5 things of problem understanding, communication with investing in technology, I think you'll be able to address this pretty well. I think the skills to do that, and I'll summarize that. I think the first one is the integrity and value. In the sense that in times of crisis, there are a lot of opportunities or chances for leaders to slip. So you have to be very strong integrity, ethics, and also value the organization. For example, this is a time that you take care the maximum. So don't compromise on patient care. That's just an example. So that's first. Second one is the importance of courage. When I say importance of courage, I don't mean hard. What I mean is courage to stand up for your decision and do the right thing. Because there are stakeholders who may not understand your perspective, not agree with you, who may oppose you, but you are the person who is leading the team. You need to take the decision, stick by it. So you need to have the courage to stand by conviction. Third thing is to have complete in so trust your. So if confidence, you will not be and just last 2 points. We want to manage the ecosystem. So now system is talking to stakeholders, hospital, the political arena, the social arena. So managing that ecosystem skill, the most important skill I think from all is the ability to have self-discipline in a leader. So the self-discipline and motivation to do things properly in a manner and to take care of himself or herself, motivation, then motivate the others. And if you take 5 things, will come earlier. Dr. I'll stop, I think.
Yeah, now we move on to Dr. Tarang. Dr. Tarang, how can a leader navigate through challenges and lead during and after the pandemic? I think you have done a wonderful job during the pandemic. Could you enlighten us with that?
Thank you, Dr. Mini. I think, as I said earlier, I think all of us who are in healthcare are in a situation which nobody knows the clear answer to. But I think the key, most important things that we all uh, need to adopt to, and I've also, I also learned it through the way, like all of us here. First of all, I think it is our responsibility to ensure that we don't take any knee-jerk reactions in the organization. So right from the beginning, the focus has been that whatever we decide, we at least this is what I do. I don't. I take a pause first. We try to assess the situation, then we anticipate what is the next step, and then we act. So whether it was the formation of various task forces, as Mr. Gautam also said earlier, we also had various task force, but we had a one key task force where other leaders of the individual task force used to regularly report. And I think the most important thing for us was that we need to had our protocols to be set by end of March or early April, and then we were just left to assess them on regular basis and then review them and reform them as the pandemic is progressing. I think one most important thing that during this time of crisis, which all of us should be very cognizant about, is that I know there are cost pressures, but we should not take any decision with regards to laying off of our employees, with regards to not adhering to certain measures to keep them safe, because whatever we do today, we are being observed by not only our organization, but all other organizations. And it goes very much down the same philosophy which we always, at least I heard it from my grandparents as a child, that you should be with the people whom you care for during the time of crisis. You may not be there during celebration, but you have to be there in the time of crisis. So this is the time to stand with them, work with them, involve them in all the decision makings that you do for the organization. Communication is the key for all of us, and I think we also we work very hard to create a internal and external. And at one point of time, for me, external was secondary. I mean, uh, we don't have to talk about what you do. Sun doesn't talks about that he gives light; it will be seen. But most important, what the internal communication, what your people feel. Are they secure? Are they safe? Are they being taken care of? Because our employees are like our children, as your child senses how much you are invested in your child. So same way your employees sense how much are you invested in them. So I mean, one of the practices that we follow is that if any of our employees fall sick, COVID, non-COVID, their family falls sick, they definitely get a call from somebody in their hierarchy. If there is somebody in my team, I ensure that I call the person daily to check how are you doing, are you feeling fine, do you need any support. So I think this is some things which go a long way. We don't forget people who stand by us during our crisis. Another important thing is that we paid a very strong, and we continue to pay a very strong emphasis on training of our people regularly on the policies that we are changing, because the world is rapidly changing a lot of things. Every day we come across a new evidence coming across. So it should need to go down the hierarchy, and also to the last point of the hospital. Lastly, I think most important part is that we all need to be very optimistic. And because if you are, when we are positive, I think we send positive vibes. And something that I am working around a lot is that we need to stay calm at all times. I know it's very difficult for us because we have all kinds of stresses, but I think it's a journey, and I'm sure we all will come across as better human beings after this.
Thank you, Dr. Tarang. That was very enlightening. Now we move on to Mr. Yatish Wahal, what are the challenges faced by the healthcare leaders while managing business during this pandemic? I think we can have this in a little nutshell, Mr. Yatish.
Yeah, in fact, we'd also like to hear your experience. As has been summed up by the various other speakers, it's all been about leadership and how all of us have got together within the team and with the external stakeholders. It's all been a very collective and collaborative approach, if I may say so. One of the very unique things that COVID has thrown at us, besides the fact that the treatment protocols themselves have undergone change, including how and what drugs and therapeutic treatments the caregivers should sort of take themselves, is that in the case of COVID, this is perhaps one of the few ailments where, because of the fear of contracting the disease, the patient is all by himself or herself. The attendant is nowhere clear near the patient. And that is where, as hospitals, our protocols and the empathy that we talk of have become very important, because it's the hospital staff who's actually become their part and parcel of the family and their attendants. And therefore, how as leaders and our leadership has resonated down into the system has been very important in terms of differentiating the care that is available in between two centers. And that's been one major piece of change. As leaders, it became important that okay, there were cost pressures at one end, but at the other end, the caregivers had to be really taken care of. They were putting in extra hours. Their safety had to be sort of assured first. A lot of us, those who are not offering insurance, I think mandatorily, a lot of us have given healthcare insurance to all our employees and their families. And it goes without saying that even if there were non-billables or whatever, at least those of us who are there in the panel, we've had these discussions offline. We've not really recovered any of this because, as Tarang was saying, they are family. And if in these times of need we can't be with them, then what's the point of being in healthcare? The oath that each one of you have taken was perhaps meant for this day. Unfortunate that we had to actually witness it, but I think we've all resonated and lived up to it really well. And our recovery rates, be it in Bombay, Delhi, or for that matter, UP, are quite better and way above the global averages that are being seen. Yes, the problem has been that not all the cities and towns have that same degree of infra. And that is where perhaps we are seeing a struggle today, where we are not actually catering to the local population, but we are catering to people coming in from the periphery who actually don't have a place to go. And that should be the next sphere where, through public-private partnership or through the sustenance schemes introduced by the government, we should be focusing and introducing capacity and augmenting the infrastructure. Thanks. Over to you, Mini. We'd like to hear you too. How are you faring at the Wadia Hospital, and what's been your experience?
I'm a little sorry because we have run out of time. I will not be able to go ahead with that, neither the question answer session. But at the same time, I think it was an enlightening day. It was very interesting and a thought provoking session. With this, I would like to thank all the panelists for taking time out and giving the valuable insights to us, and also the lovely audience for joining this session. So a thank you, and we end the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mini. Bye, Gautam, Arjinder, Tarang.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dr. Mini. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.